Good evening, Sam, and hello, companioners. Welcome to
Good
episode beep of the Companion to the Companion. We can't say what episode is because it's a very, very, very special episode. Sam, tell the listeners tonight what we're going to be talking about.
Well, we are sneaking in a off-script, off-numbered, off the 100 episode here of 8997 at Alpine Valley. I pushed this one, and I think Ian very much agreed that we're going to do these occasional insert shows that were usually shows that one of us was at, shows that we both are beloved shows for us, and shows that we feel should be on this list. And for one reason or another, they aren't. And I think I can come up with a lot of reasons as to why this one did not make it on the list from this summer, but I believe it should be. And I think it is equal in stature to the 3, 4, 5. Well, at least the 3 shows from the summer before we get to the Great Went. This show is equal to, if not better. So we thought it deserved its own little standalone episode. So we're gonna give you a quick little maxi-sode about 8997 at Alpine.
Well, I guess it remains to be seen whether we completely agree whether it should be on the list, because we knew that you wanted it to be on the list.
Correct.
And that I probably did. But I hadn't heard it in years, and I had to listen to it. So let's see what I thought.
Yeah, so
Really
Phish plays Alpine a
here.
lot. They played Alpine 26 times. 8/10/96 was the first. This night was their second. And they last was summer of 2024. It seems like they just go there in the summer. And broadly, right. I don't know if I've scrolled through as many over 4 out of 5 stars on Fishnet shows than I saw at Alpine. It seems to be a haunt for them. They seem happy there. Having been there, the sound is amazing. I mean, we had pretty good seats. We were in the 200s over on Paige's side a little, and I remember it sounding just perfect. It's big and warm, and it seems like the band loves it there. There's that one, I don't know, when was that show that they ended the tour and like people thought was great when they busted out a lot of songs? I don't remember. I remember listening to it. It was like 20, I don't know, somewhere in 3.0, but it seems good. So I like this venue. I like getting back and listening to this. The quality leaves a lot to be desired of the audience recordings, although they are warm and big.
Sure.
It loses a lot of detail. You can find the Reba on Livebait 11, the Foam and Wilson on Livebait 16, and then I couldn't find it. But supposedly if you bought the CD-DVD release of Alpine Valley 2010, you could get The Ghost and the Taste from the Wisconsin edition bonus disc. Yeah.
Wow. You really just threw me for a loop because we kind of did a quick turnaround on this episode, so I didn't do a lot of research. And honestly, I didn't even know the Wilson and the Foam was on Live Bait. Shit.
Yeah. When we get to those, though, I have something to say about the Live Bait releases of all 3 songs and versus the audience recordings and why I think we really need a full show recording of this. And, I've mentioned it on here a few times to Kevin. Kevin, this is a great one. This is one that if you just put out as an archival release, you will get 100% happy fans. No one's going to complain that you're putting out too much Summer 97. I appreciate the Worcester New Year's 93 is coming out. It looks cool. I appreciate all that love put into that show. I'm excited. But some more 97 is going to hurt now.
Yeah, people are only going to appreciate it for sure. So I think that Alpine Valley as a venue at this point tended to play like a sort of the middle of the country festival for them, sort of, where you might have the Gorge on the West Coast as a special stop. You've got the festival on the East Coast, and this is just smack dab in the middle of the country. But it was kind of a free-for-all venue, at least in terms of lore, where you would go to Alpine Valley and it's camping and it's just, there's not a lot of security. And even though it was a shed, it was a real celebratory location. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was out there.
Yeah.
I think the Grateful Dead played a lot of great shows there, and it did have a history. It's really pretty. You're just kind of out on these fields and tucked into the side of a hill. And, I'll tell our story about leaving the venue at the end, which was bonkers. Uh-huh. And, we did try and get another participant who was at this show to join us tonight, and we're unable to. But I remember that guy went to the restroom at set break, a thing I generally try to avoid when not in a very clear-headed state of mind. and I believe had a pretty rough time there. I had one of those don't look in the mirror kind of restroom moments, but yeah, leaving the venue was quite an adventure, as well as the show was. We will go through it. I had a lot of mixed emotions listening back. I felt weird about parts. I thought some parts were as good as I remembered, some weren't, and some were better. So all in all, big fan. Like I said, I think it could replace Shoreline. I think it could replace Walnut Creek. I think it could replace Deer Creek. I don't know how I feel about the Great Went as a standalone thing that's different. But, next episode, when we talk about Deer Creek, we'll talk about a lot of the highlights between Shoreline and Deer Creek. And, I think this show, just instead of being highlights, deserved its own little episode here. So let's jump in at set one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so it opens with a theme from the bottom, which I'm sure I've mentioned before. I love, 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 love a theme opener, as I believe Sam does as well.
Yeah, there was the one in Arizona that I loved as well that opened the whole tour for me. So getting to this show and having the seats we did and having them come out with this theme, and it like really, I'll say it over and over. It sounds great in this venue, in the covered pavilion section, but wow, did it sound good. It's all wood, the whole structure is wood and it just feels warm. And the energy of when they hit the first note at the beginning of the jam section of this song was massive. And the jam peaked beautifully. It was very, I read Rob Mitchum's review of this show. Shout out, Rob. I wish you listened to our show. I love reading your stuff. You're a cool dude. He missed this show, and he talked about the Tinley Park really letting him down. And I remember thinking, yeah, Tinley Park was fun. Like Gumbo was cool, but it let me down a little too. And he skipped Alpine and went straight to Deer Creek, and he regretted it. And I get that. He kind of said it had a 95 vibe. And I don't know if I would exactly equate it that way, but the show was just perfect. Like it has all the way through, it's perfect. The openers and closers of the sets are perfect. The structure, the flow between the songs, the energy is massive every song. Are there the biggest jams of the tour? I don't know. No. Like the Deer Creek show we're going to discuss next has one of the longest jams of the tour, but half of it is kind of garbage in my opinion. Yeah. And, we'll revisit it next episode. This show didn't have a lot of garbage. There wasn't a lot of fat to cut. I thought there were some sloppy moments, but man, this theme was not one of them. It came out of the gates just crushing.
I will say the sloppy moments are few and far between on this show. I mean, really almost non-existent. Even moments that maybe aren't my favorite, I wouldn't necessarily lean towards sloppy.
There's just a couple times they try and get up the mountain and can't, and you kind of have to do a few laps. That's all. That's all, and that happens.
No, but it was a fantastic theme, really great version, and a perfect opener. And then it goes into Punch You in the Eye. And so I guess something that I would mention about this show is it does seem, and to refer back to Rob Mitchum saying that it's 95-ish, is not that it isn't funky, but it is considerably less funky to me than some of the other 97 shows I've listened to thus far in the summer. In that they were maybe feeling the rock and feeling the composition and the delicate on this night.
Yeah. Trey's very raucous. There's a lot of rock and roll Trey.
but this Punch You in the Eye is the exception. It's not necessarily funk, but it is played at a rapid pace, and it definitely is snappy. It's got some really great
big energy.
Wah-wah going on in it, and is just like it's like a freight train of dance energy. It's really cool.
I also, I know, like you're saying, there isn't as much of that long-winded summer 97 funk.
Mm-hmm.
But, the Ghost directly after is...
This
like
is the part of the
just
show where we get it. Yeah.
Like 15-minute Ghost from the summer. And man, there is like a slap bass section in the middle that just, wow. Like I very, very much enjoyed. I thought Mike was putting on a clinic. Like Mike crushes this show. Everyone does, but I really felt the energy off Soft G this night, and it kind of first really presented itself in this Ghost. It was great.
As long as you're bringing it up, Mike's my MVP of the night.
Yeah, I was wow. Like they put him. I remember the spotlight being on him a number of times in this show. He got it. He got out there, and I loved his transition to the modulus bass, and at this point, I was really trying to be a bass player, and his transition to different basses and his rig just sounded so big and so full. And the audience recordings that are available, the ones we've all listened to, the whole room shakes. I was listening to him in my music room pretty loud, and this whole room was shaking, and there were some bombs in there. Like it was, wow. And that'll get to, those that can listen to the Ghost Taste, maybe on the Wisconsin edition, maybe the mixes are great. But, I felt the Live Bait releases lacked a little bit of thickness. They were a little thin, and I thought didn't do a lot of justice to the music. Mm-hmm. The Reba felt thin. It was weird. So I just think they need to be mixed and mastered properly for the show. But
I did notice that in terms of the bass bombs, and like the audience recording is very full.
Yes, full.
Muddy and full, and not clear highs, and that's what the soundboards have, clear highs. You see everything that's going on, but it doesn't feel as powerful because it doesn't have that low end. Yeah, this is the endless discussion of audience versus soundboard. But when it's done right with those matrices or whatever you did on Amsterdam in New Year's '95.
Oh yeah, we can find a way. Kevorkian, maybe.
But yeah, the Ghost definitely has some funk, and it leads into like a jazzier introspective space. And
the second half is more exploratory. It's good.
Yeah, and Trey kind of like stumbles onto this repetitive phrase, which like when he's really improvising well, he sometimes does, where he finds this phrase that sounds like it's composed, and then you can kind of tell he's like, "Ooh, what's this?" And then he plays with it like a toy for a while, and he does that in this Ghost, which is a part of the performance that I quite enjoy. And then it gets a little spacey, and we eventually end up in a taste.
Yeah, I wrote just mesmerizing. This is one where I wish I did have the soundboards for it. Just get a little lost in there, but
right.
Wow. I loved it. Like, think about the set at this point. Theme punch, Ghost Taste. Like you're, already 40 minutes of music and so many styles. And this taste really, I loved it. I love Page's solo through it, and the transition was great. And, truly full band. I think that's the reason why I put this show above a lot of others is the energy is through the roof. It's clean. It's tight. The song selection is perfect. The flow through this set, but the second set even more so, is just an impeccable flow. Right. And the band playing together, everyone shows off all the time. They really are just gelling at this point on tour in a way that I was blown away by.
I'm not blaming you for sending me off on tangents, but here we go with my tangent number 2. The
Yeah.
Gorge, 8-2-97. Sam and I have spoken length how we
Mm.
think that 8-3 is the better of the two shows. We really adore
Barely,
8-3.
but yeah, barely.
But I will say about the second, it's got this very famous diseaser, this down with disease tweezer, and it's got a great Wolfman.
Which I did not like in the moment.
Yeah, and nor should you. What I would say is that you could listen to that, like listen to the Down with Disease jam and listen to like the last 5 minutes of the Down with Disease jam, and you hear a band that's desperately trying to hook up. They are so willing to improvise, but they're just not connected. They just aren't connected, and everything is just a beat off. The tweezer is actually quite good, but the end of the Down with Disease is a real problem. And conversely, or not conversely, but insanely, the Wolfman's Brother, which is like an 18-minute Wolfman's in the first set, very exciting for 97. I think the first 5-6 minutes is incredible. I think the last 5-6 minutes is incredible. And I think the 8 minutes in the middle is fucking atrocious because they're trying so hard to hook up and they just can't hook up. And this is the opposite show. This is the show where maybe they're not huge jams and they're not crowd pleasers, but they are hooking up in a way that is beyond them. That it's kind of in the air on this night where they just woke up this day and they were going to be connected no matter what. And it's the on rails Arco Arena phenomenon. And I do feel like it's here in a very 97 way.
Well, the band has to love this show too. You can feel the band loving, and they talk to the audience a bunch. Like, we're having so much fun. Thank you. Like, you can tell. And again, to continue the tangent. So at the Gorge, you have to like go to these filling stations to get water. Uh-huh. So we were camping between, the second and third. So the morning of the third, we were somewhere getting water. Afternoon, I don't know. Sun was out. And I know Ryan was there, and I don't know who else was with me. We're filling up these water jugs, and we were talking about the second and saying, I don't know, that the show was good, but there were some down spots and there were some mistakes. Like, I really hope tonight's better. I hope they kind of figure out the problems. And we'd never been here, and the Gorge is so beautiful. I don't know why the band didn't show up. And these guys behind us in line are like, well, I guess, you see too many shows and you don't know how to appreciate a good thing when it happens. And they were kind of pissed that we were critiquing the night before as not being great, and they were obviously miffed about it. And here we are doing it again. So we kept the spirit alive.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was an early show for me, right? So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would have been show 6 for me, or 7. Yeah, I thought it was amazing, and I didn't notice any of the not hooking up. And I was like, I saw this amazing Long Wolfman's Brother, and and I loved the show, especially the Harry Hood without the lights. And I was with Matt. Matt D was with me together at the show, and you guys were on the floor, I believe. You were closer, so you were able to see the band. And I remember after the show, you guys being like, and Matt and I were like, oh, it was like amazing. And you guys were like, well, we were watching the band and you could tell that there was like some infighting. Like they kept making sour faces at one another and they just weren't connecting. Was weird. And there were weird vibes. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when I went back and listened to the show as a more experienced Phish listener, I totally heard it.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Yeah.
Very weird. But I'm excited to re-listen here in the next month and give it some more love and also, true critique.
Gosh, and as long as we're talking about the Gorge, I feel like I have to tell this story because it's such a great story. But we were traveling up to the Gorge, my friend Matt and Morgan, and we were driving Matt's minivan, his MPV Mazda minivan, and it like died on the road. And this was post Shoreline, so we were a few hours past San Francisco, and his family lived in Sacramento. So the car died, but we had Gorge tickets, and he was determined. He was like, we got to go. So he called his parents and said, hey, if we take a train, I'll send Ian on a train back to the house in Sacramento. Can you give him your car, and then we can take your car up to the Gorge? It turns out his dad had just bought a brand new green Mustang. And I had never really driven a sports car, but it's fairly responsible. So I took the train down there. I got the Mazda or the Mustang, and we drove it up all the way to the Gorge. and we drove at record speeds. Like, we were behind on time, and that was a long drive, so we were like barely gonna make it. And it was one of those
That's
situations.
a long, fun drive too.
Yeah, and I just remember driving through, all the trees and how gorgeous it was, and we were driving probably a little faster than we should, listening to music, and just it was like that ultimate early 20s tour time. And yeah, we made it like just in time for the show. Didn't really have any downtime or time to set up our tents. It was just like, drop your stuff and then get in line and go to the show. We kind of like walked in on the lawn like just as it was starting. So we were definitely like in a seventh heaven of, this is magic. And especially when they did the lights out Harry Hood, it definitely made for a pretty incredible night. So I don't mean to be shitting on it, but this is a podcast where this is what we do. We shit. So that's
but also tip of the hat to Dobrowiak Senior.
Absolutely, Dick
that's
Dobrowiak. You were a mensch of mensches.
Yeah, way to go!
I still can't believe it. Yeah, Matt D has some super cool parents.
Wow, shout out. Yeah, I sometimes the environment and the moment that you're in makes the show in the moment, and those can remain special forever too.
Yeah,
two dudes who are on tour knowing they're going to see a lot of shows shit talking the night before at the water cooler shouldn't make you feel worse about your experience.
Definitely.
Where some people are in this just to go and just let it be, and some people are there to critique and have the really dig for the gems, and I'm looking for diamonds every night. So.
And I also have to say that some people I know, like people that are really into like 2.0 for instance, don't mind that sort of expressive sloppiness that I think tend to rub Sam and I the wrong way oftentimes. So I will say about that Down with Disease, like if you like kind of like that sort of sloppy energy rock, you might really love the Down with Disease, and it might be like they're playing to you, and that's great. But that's not what I want. I want the tight shit.
Speaking of Dog Stole Things, isn't that your favorite?
Oh well, I didn't get to talk about. The taste was so great. I thought Page might break a string on his piano. Is that even possible? He was playing so hard. I was like, oh my god, hard. Your poor piano.
I thought of you when the Dog Stole Things started because you liked the one at Shoreline so much, and I mean it was great.
This one was slower. This one was a little bit slower than Shoreline, so I still liked it. Favorite. But yeah, no, it was not my favorite. A low point of the show. I won't argue against that.
Yeah, and then again, Live Bait 11 is where you can find this Reba. People talked about it as, it's like the sister to New Year's 95 Reba. I don't remember where I read that. It's not. It's good. I love the composed section. Really nice tempo. Great patient start to the jam. The band seems like they are just relaxed. But this is one of those that I think, I don't know. Let me know your experience, because I did not listen to the audience recording. I jumped straight ahead to the Live Bait one. I cranked it in my headphones, and it just felt a little naked, a little thin, a little, there were a few times around the mountain to get kind of up over the hill. It feels like they couldn't keep it together during the peak, but I thought the first 3 quarters was gorgeous and really, really well done. but without a perfect peak. Like, this was the first moment I was like, okay, Reba was fine. But I remember in the moment absolutely adoring it and thinking it was magic.
Well, this is what I think. I think this is an unusual Reba. And I think if you look at it as an unusual Reba, there's more to appreciate. I think the composed section was great. And I think that when it gets into the jam, like you said, it starts off kind of floaty and mellow for just a moment or two. And then it gets into this kind of like King Crimson-y, Dave's Energy Guide patterny
I loved it.
section, if you will. And it does that for a while. And then it starts to get like mildly dissonant, and it starts like building. And then you're like, wait a minute, I think this Reba thinks it's a 93 tweezer. And it's very 93. If you like go back and listen to this Reba and just pretend it's a 93 Reba, you will convince yourself it is a 93 Reba.
One of my favorite Rebas ever is like, I don't remember if it's 811 or 81293 from that set one. It's like the third song in the first set. It's like a 20-minute Reba, and it's just mind-boggling. It is unbelievably good. And this one, I see what you're saying.
It has like a looser 97, sloppier sort of feel to it than 93, but in the sense that they're like, oh, we're gonna explore some different avenues and some dead end streets here, and we're gonna get a little dissonant, and we're gonna actually have a weird un-Reba like build, because there's several minutes in this Reba where if you were to put it on blindly, you and I would most likely not be able to call it as a Reba. We wouldn't know what it was. Yeah. So I'll give it points for that.
Maybe the whole band wasn't at times on board, or there was like these moments of when are we going to push around towards building again? So there were a few moments, but I still thought there was a real appreciation amongst the players to just, okay, we're going to go there. Let's go.
Right.
It was a freeing jam. It was very... And I think it set the tone for the rest of the night, where everyone was like, cool, you're going to do that. We're going, and I'm going with you,
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like. It was great.
Yeah, I guess first. Yeah. Anyway, I was going to say type 2 of the night, but I'm trying not to say type. And then we go into...
Yeah, I mean, it didn't quite, but it was great.
We get to Lawn Boy. Mikey Gordon doing it just right.
Yeah, it was really nice. I remember, again, bass players sticking together, but it was a moment where I was enthralled. I was enthralled, and I hadn't seen a lot of Lawn Boys where Mike takes the solo, because it was Page taking it for so many years, and very cool, because when Mike takes the solo, Page is out there. He's got his mic, he's walking the front of the stage. Yeah. You can hear the audience screaming, and he pulls his little lounge lizard act, and it was, I love it every time. I would take a Lawn Boy every night. Big fan.
But then we just kind of close out the set with the Crossroads. What do you think of this cover, Sam?
It came out of nowhere. I didn't even know what to expect. I knew the song. I was like, does Phish play this song? This is wild. Whereas Trey was just rock guitar godding. This was like we said earlier, where it just, sometimes he's just so pent up. He's like, I'm going to start Crossroads and we're going to get after it.
Right.
And whoo. Like, I remember once this was over, I think right after this too, Bill was just losing his shit. Bill was like, I think Bill liked Rock and Roll Trey and was just like, oh my God, what did we just see? And, there's going to come a couple moments in the show, but this was one of them where I was like, I'm seeing a serious Led Zeppelin-y rock and roll band here. this is big boy pants. This is kind of like letting it fly. And it was, raw masculine energy. And I was very impressed. It was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it feels the Johnny Be Good, the, whatever. It's the character zero, the rock and closer, I suppose.
It was cool to see.
It was cool to see
something
a new
different
cover
in that spot. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't my favorite, but it was pretty good. It's what you would expect. Like you said, it was Trey
Fishman seemed really down to
Trey at his finest, and that's what we expect when we get a classic rock cover, and he delivered. And I do also remember Bill being quite over the moon about the Reba, so I'm sure he enjoyed the set for sure.
Yeah, we talk about different aspects of the band through time and how 97 really started to seal their big jams and their funk. And let it not be overlooked that 97 was also massive rock and roll guitar god time.
Because he still had
98 a little bit less, but 97 was, he was trying to lay back, but then when you let him get out there and he put on all his tube screamers and went to town, it was, he still had it. And he was cocky about it. And like the rest of the band kind of like, all right, man, you get after it. We'll support you. Don't worry.
Right.
And, you could tell every time Fishman was like, get it, Drake. It was really cool. Yeah.
So
the energy at set break was just so high.
Oh,
everybody, it was, we talked about it at Sacramento where it was, you're kind of like, people are looking at each other like they can do anything. Right. They can do anything. It had that vibe of like, they're just sizzling right now. And they had to go backstage feeling great, feeling excited. And, so set 2 comes out and you'll see a lot of sets, 97, 98. They'll come out set 2 and they'll open with something massive. Like it's Mike's or Tweezer or Down with Disease. And it's AC/DC Bag, a big 20, 30 minute jam. And what I appreciated about this show is they took a couple songs to kind of warm themselves back in. Really interesting 2 songs before they kind of got into this flow of the set that became almost one singular piece of music for the rest of the show.
Right.
And I thought construction of set 2 here, I don't know that I could have put together a much better set. I really don't, of Phish. Mm-hmm. It's a dream in on paper, but also in performance. I'm not a giant Son of a Mule, but this one, like being there, it was a very visual Son of a Mule.
Right.
So,
yeah, I suppose empirically that would be your argument against, would be like if you were a scent hater or something. But then again, you can't deny this is an amazing scent. But yeah, we start with
so much fun to watch.
We start with the Wilson. Yeah. It's pretty standard, great energy, but Trey does some comedic faux heavy metal jamming, which is always fun.
Yeah, it's a way to put a stamp at the beginning. Mm-hmm. It's a way to come out with energy and bring the room back and get everybody's spirits up and show some rock and roll intent. It was really cool. It tied the first set into the second.
No, I've got no problem with it. It just wasn't a standout Wilson per se. But the foam was, and I mean, foam in the 2 spot of the second set is an unusual spot for it, and I'm all for it because I feel like that's the 2 spot is prime. The band has kind of like gotten the energy out of the first song, and then they're ready to improvise, and that they do. It gets the full 97 treatment, and I have to say, I really like the vocals. I don't know if it's the I didn't listen to the live bait, but on the audience, I think the vocals were great. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because Mike's out front or what it is, but I did really enjoy how in Trey's section, he used several different tones or pedals or effects or whatever you want to call it. So it was kind of like a different instrument, like every minute or so. And there it gets to a point where he has a certain pedal and then he starts wawing over it. And it sounds just like the Mutron. Like he got there kind of naturally. He got there kind of naturally years earlier. But yeah, I think it's a pretty incredible foam. What'd you think?
Yeah, I guess I did mention it before, but there's 3 headphones from this show, and I honestly, there's one more I would put on as a fourth, but the Reba, the foam, and the Weekapaw all get them. So this foam gets a headphone in the book, which I hadn't seen a ton of foams as a Phish fan and would go on to not see a ton of foams. And I was so excited to see this one. It's rare. It sadly had become a rarity at this point. I understand the band didn't want to play it all
Granted,
the time.
you did just see one at the Gorge.
Goofy. Yes. This I was very excited, and it was great. Page's solo was tight and strong. It wasn't super long, but it was very, very well done. And I love hearing him play grand piano. And like you said, Trey pulls the entire bag of tricks out through his solo. And I guess upon first listen, it can seem like he's doing it because he can't find a specific kind of avenue to get through the song that he's happy with. But it's more like having a larger palette and being able to paint with a lot of colors at once. It was he was all over the place and neurotic, but it was fun because the band just kept following him everywhere. And it showed a real intent to, like in the Reba, to be exploratory without just pushing it into, I'm going to start like 4 delay loops and like we're just going to go into a groove. Right. It was trying to find new space. It was very cool.
Yeah, well, that's very well said. And I think you juxtapose this one with the Gorge one, where it is more like the other, where he picks a tone, he commits to it, and then he has this through line, and he has like a real theme that he's working towards, and it's really cool. Yeah, and I love that. I adore that foam. But this one is just like way different, and I adore it for that.
Very different.
And having sound now, I'm gonna have to listen to the soundboard, but I might not be able to choose between the two. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, then we get into the mics. So let's get into this sandwich.
I think Mike's Through Swept Away Steep is one of my favorite pieces of music from summer 97. And I know that's a weird, thing to quantify this little piece. And a lot of things that come after the Swept Away Steep are very good. But something about the flow from Mike's Through the Swept Away Steep is just, I blasted it again today, and I love it so much. I don't think this is the greatest Mike song I've ever heard, but man, it is massive. When it hits the groove, it is so big and heavy, and it doesn't really go anywhere specifically, but it just has this massive lumbering feel. When it finally kind of dies out to quiet, they hit this little jam towards the end that reminds me a lot of the You Enjoy Myself from Shoreline, which is weird that we're jumping back to that. There's this theme that Trey starts to repeat when it gets quiet. And it doesn't find anything like a strong foothold. It's almost just this big lumbering beast that just kind of slowly, quietly settles to a slow walk.
Yep.
I loved it. It's a real vibe in that room. And the transitions, like the transition into Ain't Love Funny was so perfect. And I loved it so much. And then I think the single greatest transition of the summer was the Ain't Love Funny into Simple. Funny is just what it seems. this simple, I mean, I've seen probably 20, 30 simples somewhere in there. This is one of my favorites. Yeah. And no one talks about it. Like, I was reading all the reviews. No one really mentions it. It is stunning. The energy the band has. The composed section slaps so hard. Like, Mike is being so aggressive, and the jam itself it's clean. It's not long, but my God, does it, like, it just hits me and the aggressiveness which Mike plays with through all of the simple is very impressive. And then the Swept Away Steep as the capper. Wow. It's such a wild ride of dark and deep and beautiful. It's not, I don't know. I love it. This is one of my favorite pieces, this whole stretch.
I love to hear it. Well, now that you've pumped it up, let me knock it down. I'm just kidding.
Please.
The mics and something you didn't mention is that the mics is considerably less funky than previous mics. It's much more of a rockin', like kind of like earlier type of mics.
Yeah.
Not that Mike isn't playing some funkier styles, but compared to the previous ones in the tour, less. Definitely some heavy rock.
Restrained.
And then we get some Siren. So that's exciting. Like, did you, when you were at the show, do you remember kind of marking it with your brain, being like, there's a Siren going on? Because this is new now, the Siren.
No, you could watch Trey go up and start pressing things, and you're like, "Oh, okay." Like,
right.
And I knew enough about music. I lived with guitarists and knew that he was setting loops,
right.
And I understood that was happening. But it still was weird. It was weird and odd. Like I said, the mics was a vibe rather than.
I mean, I like that. I like the Sirens. Don't get me wrong. That was not a diss. I'm just pointing it out. We haven't discussed Sirens yet.
Not a lot. No. Yeah. It's very prevalent in the coming future here, yes.
But I will say on Sam's behalf here that the last minute of this Michael Soft G Gordon's playing. I don't know if it's a tease or it's another song or he just came up with it. But holy Lord. I'm just like, what are you playing,
is,
Mike?
Right there with him, too. Like,
it's so
seems like
good.
Fishman wants to kind of groove a little more, but the rest of the band's holding back a little, and they're all so gentle with it. The energy was really well managed.
Yeah, just great Mike going into and then Ain't Love Funny is like his song. And I did notice with this one, and I want to say that it's still wonderful and I loved it, but it did seem like it was a slower pace than Amsterdam. And the band might have had slightly more nerves playing it. But that doesn't...
The vocals were a little sloppy. There were a couple of mistakes. But
it doesn't take anything away from it. In fact, it might make it have a little bit more emotional heft. I just wanted to point out the difference. And again, what a fantastic intro into Simple. All I wrote for Simple is perfect, nothing unusual or any huge statements, just glorious, glorious perfection. And I did listen to it 3 times, and it is just one of those simples where I'm just like, just put it on loop. Just keep it going. It's like, it's all amazing.
But that intro, like the transition from Ain't Love Funny into Simple, I think I've put it into this podcast somewhere else already. But it is one of the biggest rock and roll, rock god moments I've ever seen from this band. And the audience, as I insert this at some point into our conversation, you'll hear the audience. People were freaking out, and the energy in that building, like it was like the roof lifted off. And to be there for those moments, it was just power.
Right.
And it almost like you can hear it when you listen. This Simple has the perfect shapes moving and turning. Like it just really, they were so locked into these twisting and swirling shapes. It was perfect. It was really like what you want. It was psychedelic and gorgeous and emotion filled and just so great. But it starts with like lifting people up to this plane where rock and roll is supposed to be. It's about like, like the chorus of Pour Some Sugar on Me is like, how in an arena would you hit that and not feel it? Like this kind of had that kind of feel to it where it was just like, like this is what rock and roll's about. Like this is how it saves lives. This is why, like, what Lou Reed said. I'm a big fan.
And this wonderful, simple, and it's unfortunate, Sam, I have to agree that just because it's an 11-minute simple, give it some love. A lot can happen in 11 minutes.
Come on, people.
Honestly, there's a 7-minute Prince Caspian from 3.0 that it goes to Saturn and back. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it in 6 minutes. It's an unbelievable feat.
Size isn't everything. And I will go on the record here for this show and say I would rather hear this set of music than a 4-song second set most days. Mm-hmm. I would rather hear the band move. There's so much improvisation in this set still, but move through 15 styles of music, all these compositions they're proud of over all the years that they've been together as a band, hitting all these ups, downs, peaks, valleys, different, like it's beautiful stuff. And, I'd rather most days, 9 out of 10, take this over these behemoth jams that often have 50% fat.
Right.
Flabby sticks.
And I think before we go forward, let's just look back at the set real quick and just kind of like look at mood. Okay, so Wilson joined the set, like good time. Foam, really spacey, out there, psychedelic music that requires a lot of attention. Then we've
touching on some classical jazz kind of vibes.
And then we got the mics, which is kind of like the blowout energy. Here's your big jam of the set. And then we get to this run of Ain't Love Funny, Simple, Swept Away, Steep. And like I said, speaking of going to Saturn, I mean, how far away from reality are you at this point in the show? I mean, I can only imagine how what an emotionally beautiful state you would be in if you were at this show and kind of like really locked in with the music. I mean, they've taken you on quite a journey. And then we land on this Slave. And I know you kind of had said that...
Oh, Scent of a Mule,
I'm so sorry. So the Scent of a Mule. So now we're at the Scent of a Mule.
Which is a wild, and I've talked about not being well, let me go back briefly. Swept Away, some of the best Tom Marshall lyrics of all time. But yes.
And beautifully played. Both versions.
Oh, yes. Played. And then you move to the Scent of a Mule, and I've gone on record a few times, not my favorite Phish song or Mike Gordon song. But this one was... insanity.
It's so fun.
Insanity. And it was visual too. The lights were nuts. It ends at some point with Mike and Trey doing all these weird synchronized dances. They were laying on their backs doing bicycle kicks in the air. It felt like the stories you heard of like 91, 2, 3 Phish that was like doing these goofball insanity kind of things. They were having so much fun being themselves on that stage. And it was it warmed your heart. They, like I said, there's a lot of talking from this show, like a lot of thank yous. And the band this was that moment of like, we were giving it back to them. And you can hear the audience in the Scent of a Mule like freaking out because they were just being silly.
Yeah, I would have been laughing hysterically.
And we were like, it broke the, everything from Wilson through Steep was kind of heavy.
That's why I love they do these crazy juxtapositions, these 180s, and they work so well.
Yeah. We could have stuck a Fishman, solo cover, like a, a vacuum solo in there, but I thought this was a much better choice musically and comically. It was
Yeah, if you're a fan, I mean, you can shit talk Cinnamon Mule as a song all you want, but if you're a piano fan, I don't know, like, I mean, Paige was killing it in this thing. Like, Paige was doing all kinds of incredible piano acrobatics, and Trey as well, doing like great stuff. Like, anyway, fantastic.
And then the slave.
Yeah, and then the slave.
The slow, big slave.
And yeah, I think that the quiet part is just incredibly interesting. I feel like it's breathing. It's like perfectly imperfect. Yeah. And it's just so human. And I love slaves like this, where it isn't mechanical. It isn't, necessarily calculated. It really is just them putting themselves out there, and you can just feel that emotion kind of bleeding through their instruments. And I thought it was really hard on the sleeve and really powerful as it starts to soar when it gains pace. And Trey does go for the long note towards the end, and success works.
Yeah, it crescendo's nice, and I remember the breeze during this slave. It was one of those outdoor moments where it had the breeze, and you got those like chilly breezes, and you felt connected, and you're surrounded by green there. It's so beautiful, and it was really, really, really nice. I always love a slave, and then you knew what was coming next, or you assumed what was coming next, and wow, like again, 10 out of 10 energy going into this week. Yeah, like Mike right at the top. Come on. Mm-hmm. Again, it was like just a lesson in slap bass. There's multiple in this show moments, but this was another one where you're like, what are you doing? Yeah, you are just nuts. Yeah. And the breakdowns through the song, they're like clavinet bass stretch, and can you hear me knocking? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right? No, trying to remember.
I would just say I think this Week of Pause is pretty dang amazing. I mean, I think it's
so many sections.
I think it just kept going. Really great. And when it's all over, it definitely gives me that whoa. But the Canyon,
and you felt when they left, you're like, that was a Mike's groove. Like I hadn't seen a Mike's groove this long since like San Diego Sports Arena. Like,
it was the full Sando. But yeah, the Can You Hear Me Knockin' was attempted, and as a quibble, I would say it did not. It messed with the improv a little bit. I feel like they were doing some really cool improv, and then the Can You Hear Me Knockin' kind of fucked it up a little bit. But that's okay. That was like the Weekapaw thing for summer '97, and it's fine.
Yeah. I think it achieves a Mike's that I did not get in Shoreline. Right. So yes, Shoreline had some other big jams, but I think the Mike's groove there did not do what this one did.
Yeah, honestly, see, this is interesting. So if we're talking about choosing a show for the top 100, I think I would choose this one over Shoreline. I have to say, I will choose it over Shoreline because I think it's just a better, the flow, the way everything kind of works together, the styles that they're doing, the amount of musical ground they're covering, and it's just a solid all the way through listen. Now, if you ask me going back in time, would I choose to go to this show or would I choose to go to Shoreline? I would choose to go to Shoreline 10 out of 10 times. It wouldn't even be a choice. And granted, I wasn't there, but to that yem alone is just enough to I'm there and I'm not missing it. But I'm a big enough man to admit we're talking about shows and not jams.
Well, the West Coast too was so strong, that run of Arizona, Ventura, Shoreline, the Gorge. It was really strong, and it needed to be kind
represented,
of shown some respect on the list. And it's tough. We'll get to the Went and we'll kind of see where that floats to. But I more am interested in replacing Deer Creek. But that's just me. Because if we're going to throw one to the Midwest, we will do a lot of digging. And when our next episode 50, we are halfway through this. We're going to be so gray when we're done with this podcast. I am going to, kind of weigh in on whether I think this should take the place of Deer Creek. I was at both Deer Creeks and I had a great, great time at both of them. And it was a wild.
I remember you guys thinking this show was much better than Deer Creek.
Deer Creek was fun, really fun. And I kind of saw the two nights as like one big thing. I liked the second night more. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I got to get back into it and do some listening. Again, audience recordings leave more to be desired from those shows than this one. But I don't want to skip the encore in this, though, because Circus Comes to Town is such a great song, and I love that Phish was doing it a lot at this point. And this was one of the better ones I saw because the energy and the heart was so good in this one, and re-listening reminded me. And then Rocky Top, I just wrote yeehaw. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, they were both great, and I do think that Circus is it's sludgy, but it is appropriately epic. I mean, I do feel like it is a really epic ending, and that is awesome.
Yeah, Trey putting that energy and like really nailing. I love a guitar solo that just follows the vocal melody through the song. And kind of puts these little tweaks on it. And, I'd seen a few on this tour and they were all a little bit, okay, I get it. But this one, it's like when you see a really good Bittersweet Motel, you're like, oh, it just resonates. It hits you. And this was Phish getting their ballad on. And what a way to come out for it.
Yeah, great on.
And then Rocky Top.
Great classic encore.
All right, so my short story here, we finished, we were in the 200s, as I said, on Page's side, and the show ends, Rocky Top ends, people are screaming and cheering, the band seems very, very happy and bowing and waving, and they go off stage, and I like to sit. I'm not first guy out the door. I just sit the fuck down.
Can confirm.
I gotta wait. Confirm. And we are watching, like little mice almost, or ants. All the guys on stage just start ripping everything down because they got to move. They're leaving that night, so they're breaking all the stage down, and everyone leaving is going up the hill. Alpine Valley is it's just this massive hill that goes up forever behind you, and the lawn is gigantic. And we're waiting and we're waiting and we're like, all right, do we go walk up this giant hill? And then we see some people from the 1 in 200s exiting to the side of the stage on Paige's side down this ramp. And there are signs that say exit. So we go walk down there. And we're all a little bit out of our heads, to be clear.
Sure.
And I don't remember where we stayed this night, but I'm 99% sure we had a hotel or we were driving to Deer Creek. I really can't remember. I know at Deer Creek we camped at Glowwoods. We called it Glowworm campgrounds. But it was just someone's yard, and cops weren't allowed out there. So cornfields. But Alpine was different. You're up there in cheese country, and it's beautiful green rolling hills, and we just had to get back to the car. And we knew we had to get up that hill eventually. So we go down the hill and out this door and just start walking down these paths, and we're out of the venue all of a sudden. And we had no idea where we were. And we started walking, and there were trails. Technically, like we were on a path. And then we ended up kind of on a golf course back behind the venue. Again, no idea. And all of a sudden we realized there was no one around us. It was just us and our car of people. And we were looking around like, where the fuck are we? And we eventually I remember along the way, we ran into a couple people who were also like, we are so lost and we have no fucking idea where it's the middle of the night. It's pitch black. You're in the woods in Wisconsin on a golf course with no idea how to get back anywhere. And eventually we kind of, and this is where I wish I had someone else, maybe if any of our friends that were there listen to this, send me a message, and you can even send a voice note and I'll put it on the next episode. But I don't remember how we got to the car, but I do remember eventually heading up a hill through some trees, and we came out into a parking lot relatively close to our car. And then we found the car and it was okay, but we were out there for a while in this golf course area, just lost. And no fences, no security, no signs, nothing. It was a wild end. And, there is a lot of traffic getting out. It takes a long time. I don't remember who drove. Might have been me. I like doing the night drive. That was part of the thing. But man, we were spun. This show spun us all and emotionally took us for a real big ride. And I think at the end of it, to be lost in a golf course in the woods of, Wisconsin in a beautiful summer night was kind of a nice
highly appropriate. Yeah, I think that is a fine exclamation point to the evening. But it can be a little scary for a second there, where you're just like, where are we?
Yeah, but sitting in a car, just like waiting to try and get through traffic, and the car's running, and it's like, all right, what do we listen to? And there's nothing to listen to because nothing is gonna, that was one of the weird things after shows is like, what do you put on? I wish there were podcasts back then, because put on podcasts. But I mean, it was like, I just want to listen to nothing, or like, a book on tape. Like, it was weird.
Yeah, it's funny. I think podcasts would have drove me crazy. That's like too back to reality for me.
Maybe.
But I've found like a few. I've noticed that Radiohead, A Moon Shaped Pool, is an excellent post. Like, you just got blown out at a concert. You need something in the car to listen to afterwards. I've done that several times. Works beautifully. So I think, but we weren't necessarily into mellower music back then. So it's like, well, we can't put on They Might Be Giants or the Beastie Boys or Beck or whatever. But, we hadn't quite discovered Eno. And, there were probably appropriate choices, but we didn't know them yet.
Well, I'm listening to a lot of science and history podcasts.
Good for you.
So I think those would be the kind of things where I'm like, you know what? I would like on this drive while I'm getting out of traffic and trying to make it from, one state to another that I've never been to in my life. I want to, 8-parter on the American Revolution.
That would be fine. I actually need an 8-parter on the American Revolution if you have one to recommend.
All right. My favorite history podcast. And what's weird is I started getting really into it. And then I also occasionally listen to Conan's podcast. And it turns out he started mentioning what a fan he was of these guys' podcast. And then he went and did an episode in England with one of the guys. So they're two British guys. And it's called The Rest is History. They have like 600 episodes. They're very nerdy, very dry, very sweet and funny British men. And they have guests on sometimes, but I honestly like it when they don't have guests. And they're both, British university educated historians. Right. And it's the real deal. When you get into it, they are funny. They are, dry British humor funny, and they are so knowledgeable. And you start to really thread the needle through thousands of years and realize we're just a part of this big patchwork and framework. And it makes you feel big and small at once in a good way. It makes you feel like what's happening now is just part of the cycle.
History is good like that.
Yeah. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Behind the Bastards too, which is one of my favorite podcasts of all time. And that's more of a here's history's worst people, but it's also a historical podcast that's very well researched, but it's more frustrated comedy than it is deep British, something about these guys, their knowledge runs really deep.
I love that. I love that I asked for information on the American Revolution, and you recommended two limeys to tell me about it. Are they getting?
Oh, they love to talk about America. There's like a 6-parter on Reagan. There's like a 4-parter.
I'm sure
on Carter.
They do, but the American Revolution in particular, it seems like No, I'm totally joking. I'm sure they have.
They are definitely chuffed about the whole situation of us, throwing off the yoke of the Queen. But I think they very much understand it, and I think they get a lot of Schadenfreude about what's happening.
Oh, I'm sure. I am sure.
I mean, they went through Brexit recently, and they have no shyness to talk about.
Who doesn't like a little Schadenfreude? Bring it on.
Yeah. All right, everybody. This was a short one, but we are back for episode 50, 8/10/97 at Deer Creek next time. I promise we'll have more personal music recommendations. I know I just threw some podcastity in, but we will be back with more of that. And Deer Creek, I don't know. And we'll discuss all the shows except this one between Shoreline and Deer Creek.
Yeah, there's just a couple, or a few. But one of those...
We'll basically talk about the Gorge. I don't know. Riverport and Tinley Park don't have a ton to discuss.
I mean, Riverport has one of the single greatest jams in the history of the band. Yes. I mean, it does have that to discuss.
Yes. But we will...
if you haven't heard the Riverport Gin, listeners, just turn off the podcast right now and go. Bye. We'll see you next time.
Well, I think the Riverport Gin's 98.
Oh, shit. You're right. Oh, what am I talking about? Damn it. Get my years mixed
up.
We got a whole year to go. Still, go listen to the Riverport Gin.
I skipped Riverport as well.
Right.
So I don't have as much to talk about that one, but I'll briefly discuss Tinley Park. There's a couple really good highlights, although it was one of the shows of the tour that I could.
Is that the Merry Pranksters show?
There were a couple. No. That's coming later. In the weekend, I don't know. I don't know.
It's the Maybe gumbo if I need a fool or whatever, right?
We probably should do a little discussing about the second Deer Creek, Star Lake, and Darien Lake as well in the next episode, because I think for the Went, we're just going to have to focus on the Went.
Sounds good.
Double 3 sets. Yeah. So we'll talk about the rest of the tour at Deer Creek, both Star Lake and Darien Lake. I think some real highlights for me. And really, Darien Lake was the Pranksters, which was that was a wild night.
Yeah.
So some more funny 20-year-old me stories coming at you. And as I talk to Ian, some silly pictures of me probably posted on these episodes. So we'll see.
Yay. All right.
I got a good topless photo coming for Deer Creek, man. You wait. I was tan. I was slim. I had hair.
He had a purple Glide shirt. He had it all, guys.
Yeah. I just love the face this random guy is giving me. I'm drinking, I think, a Samuel Smith's, and I have a big hemp necklace. And he's giving me we were at the campgrounds at Deer Creek, and he's giving me a look like I am an insane person. I definitely look like I am pontificating at him in the way that I am to you and our listeners on the podcast. So it just, it's one big circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like just being like a 90s hippie is so tame compared to some of the stuff we see today. Yeah. But I like it. The weirder the better. Count me in. I'm in for the weird. Let's leave it on that note. I'm in for the weird. Sam, do you like weird?
I think we're both in for the weird. I think more weird would only do us all.
Ugh, so much better. Okay.
I mean, if the entire world was just weird.
Yes.
If we were more Seussian, it would be a better place.
Indeed. Oh,
I love interacting with people and having them go, that guy was weird.
totally.
Because you're leaving your mark. You know?
Regular Theodore Geisel, that one.
All right, everybody.
Well,
we will see you for a long, full episode 50 at Deer Creek next time.
Okay. It was fun, Sam.
Have a great day.
All right.
Always. Bye. Hello there, friends, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to reach out to Ian and I about anything at all, you can find us at companion2thecompanion@gmail.com.